right, welcome to our final review of the year. I gotta remember not to say season because no, our season isn't ending. Um, it's just 2018 is shortly coming to an end.
Mm.
Um, and with that, we have Dusk. Um, right, this is a throwback FPS. That is, say, if you can see on screen here, the game looks like it was developed circa 1997 or so. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but it isn't. Like, it's actually a modern game. It was made over the course of 5 years, actually, and Dusk has actually been around for a while in early access. And what was it? And you know, various parts of the game have been available in early access for a while now. Indeed, a lot of reviews on YouTube are of the first episode. Yeah, it's going full bore on the retro um, FPS thing. Right down to the fact that it's separated into 3 episodes, which is what they used to do back in the day. Shareware model. You usually got the first episode free. It was like a demo on steroids.
Oh,
And
yeah.
strangely enough, we kind of went backwards on that. We went from shareware, here's a third of the game, to a demo. Here's maybe a slice of the game, maybe, because not all demos were representatives of their actual game. Um, but that aside, yeah, so Dusk is split into 3 episodes, the last of which just came out, and which is why it's now in release state. The full game is complete, and it's also got a multiplayer component called Dusk World, treaded after Quake World. And if you want to see our thoughts on Dusk World, well, watch. We did a video on the multiplayer, not too like a couple of days ago. If we go in depth there, I'll sum here. Decent multiplayer, especially if you have enough people to fill up the maps, but but it's a little too limited in its features for my liking. I do hope that like team deathmatch and/or capture the flag become available, because those were pretty standard modes even in the late '90s FPSs.
And really, multiplayer-ish games really do better with multiple playable modes.
Yeah. It's like, like I said, the Dusk World part works, but it does feel like a bit of an afterthought, all things considered. Also, another thing I hope to see sometime, like I said, I don't know if there's going to be any post-launch support. We are set to interview New Blood in January about this game, but that hasn't occurred yet. Sometimes the interview happens after the review, sometimes before. Granted, we did interview them about Dusk like way back when the first episode was in development. I'd have to look exactly how long it's been, but it's been a long time. Anyway, so yeah, Dusk harkens back to the era of when your FPS only needed like a couple of letters to be a thing. Doom, Quake, Blood, and so on and so forth. And this game isn't just like, it's a throwback, but it gets it. It gets what made those games special, so to speak. Or,
fast-paced play and interesting weapons and stuff.
Exactly. Like, this game is fast. Very fast. And you shouldn't worry about it hitching or anything. Like, it looks like it's made out of polystyrene. Because, well, that's kind of how... This is how games looked 20 years ago. I'm like, and yeah, it's like, new eyes are probably going to have a problem with this, because there's no
graphics have come a long way since when this is trying to look like it was made.
Yeah. Well,
and remember, this does actually look better than like original Doom.
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff.
they're cheating if this was based on like Build Engine or something like that. They are cheating hard.
Well, it's not really aping like the Build Engine. It's really going after like Quake.
But you know what I mean. If it was like based off something like that, they're cheating hard.
Fair enough. It's just, there's no charitable way to say this. The game looks ugly because it's going for ugly. Mm-hmm. You know, it's got, and it's not just a polygon count. The color palette is very brown, very dank, very gritty. Like,
and this not game, super high color count.
Yeah. And it looks, it looks muddy and grim. Though a different kind of grim than what other FPSs were doing. Like, this isn't the same as the washed out grayscale of the late 2000s.
Let's never speak of that era again.
I just want to, there's a difference between those. And in terms of what this game is invoking, depends on where you are, actually. Because when it starts out, there's a lot of hillbilly horror. There's a lot of stuff that harkens back to Blood and Redneck Rampage. Was I the only one who ever played that one?
Probably.
Yeah. I seem to be the only one here who played Blood, too.
Considering this isn't my genre, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, look, I liked FPSs back in the day, so I played a lot of them. But as you go through the episodes, the game will become a lot more like Quake, is a good way of putting it. And even the music will reflect this. The music actually oscillates between hard rock, a lot of, when you're dealing with a lot of enemies, the music will do the adrenaline pumping thing. But when when you're going through a gothic horror structure, you're going to get a lot of industrial music. Mm-hmm. A lot of this might have been scored at Trent Reznor back in the day. It's like, think the theme music from Quake 1. Mm-hmm. There. And the game does. It gets harder as it goes along, and it does. And in my estimation, it gets better. I think the high point was episode 2. Like, episode 3 didn't quite strike the core as good of a core as 2 did. Mm-hmm. But it was still all good. And much like a lot of 90s FPSs, old school secrets are back.
Oh, yeah. Good. Have fun humping walls, boys and girls.
I was going to say, you mean random sections of walls that if you rub against just right, you can pass through them into an area with a power-up?
There are those. Mm-hmm. You can also, since this is aping like a late 90s shooter, there are multiple ways to find secrets. There are push walls, or, walls that slide up. Push walls will work. There are walls you can detonate. You can shoot grates. There are areas hidden behind objects, that kind of thing. All sorts of ways. And of course, each episode contains a secret mission. Admittedly, I didn't get to any of those. It's like, nor did I find too many in the way of secrets. I was more concerned about getting through the game than, finding every secret. And as far as what the framework is, you are a treasure hunter given the name Dusk Guy. I'm not making that up. His actual name is Dusk Guy. It's clearly an homage to Doom Guy.
Yep.
Mhm.
And he's heading to this abandoned town called Dusk in search of treasure. That, by the way, is why you gain morale, which is this game's version of armor, um, from coins. From like a bag of coins or a diamond will give you morale.
Yeah,
So there,
I mean, that's not totally novel. I mean, Duke Nukem did the same thing basically in one of the later ones, but
yeah,
in a less this is a more straightforward and less edgy way.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I guess that makes more sense to be able to regain more easily than
well,
I picked up a med kit.
Yeah. And as far as why you have meat hooks as your default weapon, well, that's what you were caught. That's what they put you on when they captured you.
Ah,
You're literally dangling from meat hooks, and you took and used those weapons to kill your assailants. That's actually how the first episode starts out, by the way.
Yeah.
And the cadre of weapons, pretty standard 90s FPS fares. You've got your pistol, you've got your shotgun, you've got an assault rifle. Let's see.
I saw a crossbow of some description.
Yep.
Yes, you've got a crossbow. You've got your hunting rifle, which is kind of doubles as your sniper rifle.
Mhm.
Like, it's not a true sniper rifle. There's no actual sniper rifle in this game. But it's the closest approximation. Like, it's definitely the rifle I use to zoom in on people to attack them. Let's see. There is the mortar, which is the grenade launcher.
Yeah, and the rivet gun are your heavy ordnance.
Yeah, the riveter, as it's called, that is your rocket launcher. Also worth noting is the episode 3 weapon, the sword. I'm like, granted, you can apparently you can get those in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, it's a secret.
Yeah, but it's the first thing you get in the third episode, and it can change up the gameplay because it's the power melee weapon. You charge it up, provided you have enough health to do so. If you have 100 health or more, you can charge up the blade, and pretty much anything it touches that isn't a boss is a one-hit kill.
And isn't it heavy damage to bosses either way?
I believe so. I never tried it on bosses.
And you don't need to have full health for this one, I assume?
No, you do.
Oh, you do? Okay, so it's exactly like the Hadoken and the Shoryuken in Mega Man X.
Sort of, but you can also slash with it.
Yeah.
No. Also, you can reflect and block.
Yeah, the blocking is key.
projectiles. That'll come at the cost of morale. Like, if you block and reflect something, it'll take a morale point off. I'm like, it had its novelty, and it was good against certain enemies, especially certain enemies that show up in episode 3. But I found myself, using firearms because, quite honestly, this is a very firearm-centric game.
Yeah, with the meat hooks especially, you would think that they would have an arc to them, but no, where they hit is where your crosshair is.
No. It is worth noting that not everything in this game is an ode to shooters of the 90s. For example, there is a rune here that basically enacts the gimmick from Super Hot. And for those
where
who don't
time
know,
only moves when you do, or moves very slowly if you stand still.
Exactly. It is exactly that. In fact, the devs said they homaged Super Hot with that rune. And yeah, that is definitely not a thing I saw back in the 90s. I'm not sure if that was a thing you could do back in the 90s.
Computers would probably melt down if you tried that in the 90s.
It depends on whether or not you're playing a game that has its clock speed entirely determined by the processor's clock speed, because that's a thing that happened and probably wasn't a good idea because of how fast computer programs have
Nobody would have thought people would have 4 gigahertz CPUs
Right.
in
Yeah.
the 1990s.
Like, I cannot shoot the spaceship. It is moving literally all the way across the screen in every frame.
Anyway, in terms of enemy types, once again, they will progress along with the story. Like in episode 1, you will be fighting a lot of cultists. They're the KKK looking motherfuckers. And hillbillies with chainsaws, which are probably the chainsaw guy from Resident Evil 4.
It's good to see him finding work.
Yes. And where Petty Fan is right now, you'll notice it's a lot more fortressy and military, and the enemies reflect that. Like, you're dealing with soldiers of various types, and as shit goes south, you'll be dealing with more otherworldly elements, let's say.
Yeah, throughout your journey, there's like this voice that keeps kind of telling you to do things. Like, I don't know if it's trying to be like some sort of elder god thing, or
I could tell you. I'm like,
but that would be spoilers, and we don't want the developers mad at us. Like, yeah, I haven't beat the game, by the way. I've only beaten episode 1, for those of you who are wondering. So it's purely speculation on my part.
Yeah, well, I think the actual voice is the cult leader, if I'm recalling correctly. Like, but yeah, it's like, I have played to the end of the game, and I know what's going down here and how things turn out, but I can't talk about that. It's like, it's not terribly relevant to the overall experience, but it's still relevant. No, it's like, it's honestly more character stuff than I would have seen out of a 90s FPS. No, that's more on 90s FPS as being fairly shallow in their plotting.
Yeah.
Most part.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like the enemy selection is very robust. And will keep you on your toes.
Well, they also add some nifty movement tech in this one, where when you crouch, you can slide.
Yeah, like, that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially when I use that against you in multiplayer.
Yeah. Indeed. Also, you can, like, some of the minds that worked on this game also worked on the Rise of the Triad remake, and you can see it. You can't jump in this game, but you can use jump pads.
You can jump, it's just kind of wimpy and not really worth it.
Yeah, it's like, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, yeah, you can jump, but it's all about the jump pads in this game. And that was one of the signature features of Rise of the Triad, both the original game and the remake. Like, now, put into the context of 90s FPSs, where this game would actually stand, probably bottom of the top of the bottom, if that makes any sense. I mean, to put it in the
middle.
About upper middle.
Okay.
It's like, put it to you this way. Probably would have been more notable than, say, Shadow Warrior, Redneck Rampage, or Blood. But this is not a game that would have ever toppled Doom, Quake, or Duke Nukem 3D.
Mm-hmm.
That's, it's a great throwback FPS, but if we were looking at it through the lens of the 90s, in the 90s, this game probably would have sunk beneath the waves.
Yeah.
Of the, is what I'm getting at. It's actually probably better that it's coming out now than it did 20 years ago, because, there aren't many of this type of game out there. I'm not going to say that this game is wholly unique because, just off the top of my head, there's another throwback-ish FPS called Strafe released back last year. It's just Strafe is another one of those games that had to decide, let's make a roguelike out of it.
Yeah, they almost got it right. They almost got it right.
Yeah. But that's a review for another time. As far as DUSK goes, the entire package, yeah, it's like it's a breath of fresh air today, make no mistake, because they don't make them like this anymore.
Oh, right, and one thing I don't know if you messed with, but apparently if you drink a bunch of beer, your character will actually be drunk and it'll be harder to aim.
Yeah, that's Redneck Rampage right there. I remember that very clearly in Redneck Rampage. Your health was like beer, whiskey, what have you. When you drank too much, you got tipsy, literally tipsy. The entire screen tilted about 45 degrees or so, and it was.
I'm drunk on temporary hit points.
Yeah. Or it's like if your health packets were pork rinds and other fatty foods of cheap varieties, and if you ate too much, you got too fat and you slowed down. It was
actually
clever.
is kind of an interesting mechanic where you like balance on whether you want to have more life and risk the performance or.
Yeah. Also worth noting, this game does have a physics engine. It's just I placed the physics engine about to early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
It's like physics out of a PlayStation 2 game, where ragdoll physics were barely a thing, and kind of it's charming and endearing watching oil barrels bounce around like they were made of rubber.
God, they tried.
Like I said, that's the kind of, it's not realistic. It is amusing. Also wanted to mention soap. Why do I mention soap? Because soap is kind of the gimmick object of this game. There is a bar of soap hidden in each level of the game. And if you find it, it will kill anything one hit. Even bosses will go down in one hit if you find the hidden bar of soap. In fact, the first mod weapon is the soap launcher. So, yeah. Soap is...
Now, is the soap, like, thrown weapon?
Yeah, it's a thrown weapon, like a boulder or a barrel.
You can pick up anything and throw it if you want to.
Yeah.
I guess that's what a physics engine is good for, really.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, there is a physics engine here. It's just, it's a physics engine that saw the moon or, an asteroid. Which is fine for this kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So, hang on. Pricing. So the game clocks in. It's going for a special right now. It's a special promotion until January 3rd, 2019. So if you're listening to this before that date, the game is clocking in at a 17% discount. Usually it is $20, but at its discount, it is $16.66. Try to figure out why that is. Yes.
Oh, fucking dare you.
Yes. There is the DUSK Intruder Edition upgrade. There's a lot to this game. I'll get it more back into that, what Intruder mode is. But the Intruder Edition is the graphic novel, which is a storyline novelization of the 24 pages. It's the first 2 episodes. And it's the official soundtrack. And you've got the DUSK Intruder Edition, which is the base game, graphic novel, and official soundtrack. clocking in at $24.99 and a regular retail price of $30. As far as retail releases, I believe there's going to be a big box edition of this game.
Because of course.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like if they're going the old school, they got to do it in a big box, because that's what they did in the '90s. I'm not sure if they've released all the details of that yet,
but we'll find out.
Yeah. Also, this game is coming to the Nintendo Switch in 2019. And just to the Nintendo Switch right now. No word on the PlayStation 4 or Xbox One. So that means this game does have full controller support. Now, I didn't fucking touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Oh, same. Good lord.
Because no. I'm like, that's fine if you're on a fucking console, but and I guess you can play it your way, but yeah, you really should be playing this with the mouse and keyboard. Like, it's not even a matter of preference. Objectively speaking, mouse and keyboard is a better control scheme. Like, go play some multiplayer if you want to find out the hard way. Yeah. Anyway, getting back to the game itself, there's more here. There is the endless mode, horde mode, if you will. As it proclaims, you will fight through waves and waves of enemies until you die. I guess another name for that would be arcade mode.
Yeah, arcade mode, horde mode.
Yeah. Worth noting that there are what you fight depends on the episode. Like you fight episode 1 enemies in episode 1 and so on and so forth. Let me see. Intruder mode, that is applying. Okay, so when you go from episode to episode, you lose all of your weapons. You lose all of your ammo. Mm-hmm. That is that on an individual level basis. So, if you want to deal with just the weapons you get and the meat hooks from episode to episode, you can do that. This game also has 5 difficulty levels, including Duskmare. Didn't get the chance to try this out, but if it's like old school, if it's like Nightmare mode on Doom, it's probably, shit like one-hit kills, unless you're very lucky, and respawning enemies.
All it says on here, because I'm pulled up the thing, for masochists only, enemy are ruthless, and their attacks kill you in 1 hit.
I'm like, that still could mean respawning enemies, because that was the absolute dickishness about Nightmare mode Doom. And this game kind of operates on the same principles, in that if you just kill enemies, they leave bodies. Mm-hmm. But if you overkill enemies, they gib or gib. Depending on your G pronunciation. They explode into a violent hailstorm of blood. But that was an actual tactic on Nightmare mode in Doom, because that was the only way you made sure enemies stayed dead. If you left the bodies, they would regenerate. So, I wouldn't be surprised if Dusk did the same thing. Can't 100% confirm. Like I said, there was a lot to this game.
Yeah. Where it starts you off in episode 1, Duskmere was being really, really difficult, because they don't start you with a gun. You have the meat hooks against enemies that have also melee weapons. You're going to get hit.
Mm-hmm. That's why they start you out with 200 health.
Yep.
No. Also worth noting, this game does have its super health equivalent. Mm-hmm. The hollowed health.
Well, and also enemies drop like health boosters that can get you over 100. Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's all very steeped in the tropes of 1990s shmups. It's just it leans more towards Quake than the sprawling first-person shooters like Duke Nukem 3D or Doom. In fact, the levels are surprisingly compact. I'd say it took me about 15 to 20 minutes to complete a level. Mind you, this is first time out. So, a lot of exploring, prodding, what have you.
Yeah.
But
there are developer times.
Yeah. Back in the day, we called those par times.
Yep.
But yeah, and those run like 2-3 minutes. Also, there are achievements for doing things like doing a pacifist run on a level, or doing it low tech, not getting hit, and so on and so forth. So this game will keep you occupied for a while if you're willing to dig into the replay options. A standard playthrough will run you about 15 hours to 20 hours, depending, and that's all 3 episodes. Now, if you've already played the first 2 episodes, well, you probably already got the game, so while you listen to this. And ultimately, I'm going to give this game an 8.5 out of 10 on the arbitration scale. I'm like, it's and it's one of my favorite games of the year. But that's a personal preference thing. It's because I really like this kind of game. It's the game it's a game genre I cut my teeth on a lot back 20 years ago. So I can appreciate it. As far as could I recommend it to other people? Maybe. It's like if you're of the old school, without a second reservation here. I'm like, go get it now. The nostalgia waves will hit fast and furious.
You'll probably black out from the nostalgia.
Yes. Now, if you're somebody who grew up past this era, that's a lot harder to answer because, like I said, the game is going for a certain artistical style that is pretty objectively ugly. It's like this isn't going to wow your eyeballs. In fact, it might make your eyeballs bleed with the color palette and the textures and whatnot. You're not used to this kind of thing. At least it doesn't look. At least it's not all jagged or blurry like a lot of early 3D games were.
Enough jaggies that stab your eye out.
Aye. But it's like also this game is going to be a lot faster than what you're used to. Like
there's no regenerating health here, at least on the normal difficulty.
No, I'm like, it's all med kits and other assortments of that nature. So you're gonna have to learn how to dodge and use cover.
In the colloquialism, get good.
Yes. I'm like, this is very much a skill-based product. That's not to say that the regenerating shield isn't skill-based, but it's a different skill set. What you do here and what you do in, say, like Halo are 2 very different things. Or Call of Duty. I mean, that's kind of one of the big reasons that BioShock Infinite didn't work. It tried to fuse the 2 styles, and it just doesn't connect. Anyway, what's your final thoughts on this, Petty?
I really enjoyed it. Then again, I also grew up on stuff like Doom and Quake and...
Right. 90s FPS, basically.
Yeah.
Which is... so... Yeah, it's a bit of a complex recommendation. But a recommendation nonetheless. And, as far as its pricing, it's all good. Like,
honestly, if I had to buy this at normal price, I would.
Indeed. like back in the day, this game would have cost like $40-50, and that's not even getting into the expansions.
Yeah, I was about to say you'd be paying $40-50 for maybe the first 2 episodes, and then be buying the third one later on.
Yeah, something like that. So, that'll about do it for Dusk. And yeah, that'll do it for the Fragments of Silicon reviews for 2018. We hope you've enjoyed these product reviews. Don't worry, we've got plenty of those coming up in the new year. Like, seriously, we've already got 3 weeks lined up.
Send help.
Yeah, but still, I'm going to enjoy not playing games for work, during the Christmas break, because I get to do that. And yes, on that note, we are approaching the final episode of the regular season. Coming up, there is no Tuesday episode or Thursday episode, no European interview. Last week was the last one on that end. Let's see. So, on December 19th, we've got Jeff Mendicino, Mendicino. Mendicino.
Sounds about right.
Of Modus Games. Also worth noting, format change. Jeff has mentioned he can only be with us for 30 minutes. So we will be starting out with interview. Then we will move into the news. Then we will do the topic of discussion. As per the tradition there. Also, we will be doing a special broadcast on New Year's, our annual New Year's stream thing. And we'll be showcasing the game Zeus Battlegrounds.
Right. Yeah, I was just about to ask what were we doing, and then need to make sure I have that.
So that's our plans coming up for the holiday season. So until Wednesday, I shall wish you good gaming.